The occasion has been hailed as the second Diwali, referring to the festivities that marked Lord Ram's homecoming after the battle with Ravan. The culmination of a 500-year journey. The majestic temple has nearly 400 pillars, 44 doors and a brand new idol of Lord Ram. Adorned with gold and flowers, the 51-inch Ram Lalla idol was revealed today shortly before the grand Pran Pratishtha ceremony. The idol, carved out of black stone by Mysuru-based artist Arun Yogiraj, had been covered with a veil in the days leading up to today's ceremony. The Ram Lalla idol on the ground floor of the new temple represents 5-year-old Ram. The first floor of the temple, which is yet to be built, will have the idol of Raja Ram along with Sita, Lakshman and Hanuman. Prime Minister Modi, who led the consecration ceremony, offered his prayers to the deity, flanked by several saints in the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat was also present. The RSS, or the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, is the ideological mentor of the ruling party. Most see the newly built Ram temple as a joint BJP-RSS project. The ceremony took place in the presence of hundreds of religious figures and politicians and a galaxy of film stars, sportspersons, musicians, industrialists and other celebrated personalities from different walks of life. The list of high-profile invitees included Bollywood megastar Amitabh Bachchan, his South Indian counterpart Rajnikant, top actors like Katrina Kaif, Alia Bhatt, Ranbir Kapoor, Vicky Kaushal, business tycoons like Mukesh Ambani, Anil Ambani, Sunil Bharti Mittal, cricket stars past and present like Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli, amongst many others. Over 11,000 invitations had been sent out. The opposition stayed away from the event. While some parties have accused the BJP of politicizing the religious occasion, other opposition leaders have said they would visit the temple later. It was in 2019 that in a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court of India awarded the entire disputed land in Ayodhya to Hindus for the construction of the Ram temple and allocated an alternate site for the construction of a mosque. Prime Minister Modi laid the foundation stone for the temple at the Babri Masjid site on 5th August 2020. A Bhumi Pujan and the formation of the Sri Ram Janmabhoomi Tirth Kshetra Trust paved the way for the construction of the Ram temple, bringing a semblance of closure to a protracted legal saga. In the run-up to today's ceremony, Prime Minister Modi reportedly observed a series of rituals, including sleeping on the floor and consuming only coconut water for several days. Shortly after the Pran Pratishtha ceremony, Prime Minister Modi thanked the judiciary for the justice dispensed 5 years ago, as he put it, referring to the Supreme Court's November 2019 decision to award the once disputed site on which the Babri Masjid, a 16th century mosque, stood before being demolished to the Hindu petitioners. The Prime Minister today said, "There is so much to say, but there is a lump in my throat. After unprecedented patience, innumerable sacrifices and penance, our Lord Ram has arrived. I congratulate the country on this occasion." He added, "Ram Lalla will no longer live in a tent." This moment of consecration is a blessing from Lord Ram. The 22nd of January is not a date on a calendar, but the dawn of a new era, he said. Equating the consecration ceremony with breaking free of a mindset of slavery, Prime Minister Modi said it's a blessing that we're alive to witness this historic event. He said even after thousands of years, people will remember this date, this moment. It is Ram's supreme blessings that we are witnessing it. He also sought forgiveness from the deity and said there must have been some lapse in his penance because of which it took so long to reach this point. Saying that Ram's existence was questioned, the Prime Minister said, "In India's constitution, on its first page, there is Lord Ram. I thank the Supreme Court for maintaining the dignity of law." The 5 Supreme Court judges who had authored that judgment, among them the serving Chief Justice of India, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, were all invited to today's ceremony.
आज हमारे राम आ गए हैं। सदियों की प्रतीक्षा के बाद हमारे राम आ गए हैं। सदियों का अभूतपूर्व धैर्य, अनगिनत बलिदान त्याग और तपस्या के बाद हमारे प्रभु राम आ गए हैं। इस शुभ घड़ी की आप सभी को, समस्त देशवासियों को बहुत बहुत बधाई। मैं अभी गर्भगृह में ईश्वरीय चेतना का साक्षी बनकर आपके सामने उपस्थित हुआ हूं। कितना कुछ कहने को है, लेकिन कंठ अवरुद्ध है। मेरा शरीर अभी भी स्पंदित है, चित्त अभी भी उस पल में लीन है। हमारे रामलला अब टेंट में नहीं रहेंगे। हमारे रामलला अब इस दिव्य मंदिर में रहेंगे। मेरा पक्का विश्वास है, अपार श्रद्धा है कि जो घटित हुआ है, इसकी अनुभूति देश के, विश्व के कोने कोने में राम भक्तों को हो रही होगी। ये क्षण अलौकिक है, ये पल पवित्रतम है। ये माहौल, ये वातावरण, ये ऊर्जा, ये घड़ी प्रभु श्री राम का हम सब पर आशीर्वाद है। वो भी एक समय था जब कुछ लोग कहते थे कि राम मंदिर बना तो आग लग जाएगी। ऐसे लोग भारत के सामाजिक भाव की पवित्रता को नहीं जान पाए। रामलला के इस मंदिर का निर्माण भारतीय समाज के शांति, धैर्य, आपसी सद्भाव और समन्वय का भी प्रतीक है। हम देख रहे हैं ये निर्माण किसी आग को नहीं, बल्कि ऊर्जा को जन्म दे रहा है। राम मंदिर समाज के हर वर्ग को एक उज्जवल भविष्य के पथ पर बढ़ने की प्रेरणा लेकर आया है। मैं आज उन लोगों से आह्वान करूंगा, आइए आप महसूस कीजिए, अपनी सोच पर पुनर्विचार कीजिए। राम आग नहीं है, राम ऊर्जा है। राम विवाद नहीं, राम समाधान है। राम सिर्फ हमारे नहीं है, राम तो सबके हैं। राम वर्तमान नहीं, सिर्फ वर्तमान ही नहीं, राम अनंत काल है। साथियों, आज जिस तरह राम मंदिर प्राण प्रतिष्ठा के इस आयोजन से पूरा विश्व जुड़ा हुआ है, उसमें राम की सर्वव्यापकता के दर्शन हो रहे हैं। जैसा उत्सव भारत में है, वैसा ही अनेक देशों में है। आज अयोध्या का ये उत्सव रामायण की उन वैश्विक परंपराओं का भी उत्सव बना है। रामलला की ये प्रतिष्ठा वसुधैव कुटुंबकम के विचार की भी प्रतिष्ठा है। ये मंदिर मात्र एक देव मंदिर नहीं है, ये भारत की दृष्टि का, भारत के दर्शन का, भारत के दिग्दर्शन का मंदिर है। ये राम के रूप में राष्ट्र चेतना का मंदिर है। राम भारत की आस्था है, राम भारत का आधार है, राम भारत का विचार है, राम भारत का विधान है, राम भारत की चेतना है, राम भारत का चिंतन है, राम भारत की प्रतिष्ठा है, राम भारत का प्रताप है, राम प्रवाह है, राम प्रभाव है, राम नेति भी है, राम नीति भी है, राम नित्यता भी है, राम निरंतरता भी है, राम विभु है, विशद है, राम व्यापक है, विश्व है, विश्वात्मा है। और इसलिए जब राम की प्रतिष्ठा होती है तो उसका प्रभाव वर्षों या शताब्दियों तक ही नहीं होता, उसका प्रभाव हजारों वर्षों के लिए होता है।
भाव विभोर है, भाव विह्वल है। निश्चित रूप से आप सब भी ऐसा महसूस कर रहे होंगे। आज इस ऐतिहासिक और अत्यंत पावन अवसर पर भारत का हर नगर, हर ग्राम अयोध्या धाम है। हर मार्ग से राम जन्मभूमि की ओर आ रहा है। हर मन में राम नाम है, हर आंख हर्ष और संतोष के आंसू से भीगा है, हर जीवा राम राम जप रही है, रोम रोम में राम रमे हैं, पूरा राष्ट्र राममय है। ऐसा लगता है हम त्रेता युग में आ गए हैं। आज रघुनंदन राघव रामलला हमारे हृदय के भावों से भरे संकल्प स्वरूप सिंहासन पर विराज रहे हैं। आज हर राम भक्त के हृदय में प्रसन्नता है, गर्व है और संतोष के भाव हैं। आखिर भारत को इसी दिन की तो प्रतीक्षा थी। भाव विभोर कर देने वाली इस दिन की प्रतीक्षा में लगभग 5 शताब्दी व्यतीत हो गई। दर्जनों पीढ़ियां अधूरी कामना लिए इस धराधाम से साकेत धाम में लीन हो गई, किंतु प्रतीक्षा और संघर्ष का क्रम सतत जारी रहा। श्री राम जन्मभूमि संभवतः विश्व में पहला ऐसा अनूठा प्रकरण होगा जिसमें किसी राष्ट्र के बहुसंख्यक समाज ने अपने ही देश में अपने आराध्य की जन्मस्थली पर मंदिर निर्माण के लिए इतने वर्षों तक और इतने स्तरों पर लड़ाई लड़ी हो। संतों, सन्यासियों, पुजारियों, नागाओं, निहंगों, बुद्धिजीवियों, राजनेताओं, जनजातियों सहित समाज के हर वर्ग ने जाति पाति, विचार दर्शन, उपासना पद्धति से ऊपर उठ करके राम काज के लिए स्वयं को उत्सर्ग किया। अंततः वह शुभ अवसर आ ही गया जब कोटि कोटि आस्थावानों के त्याग और तप को पूर्णता प्राप्त हो रही है। आज आत्मा प्रफुल्लित है इस बात से कि मंदिर वही बना है जहां बनाने का संकल्प लिया था। संकल्प और साधना की सिद्धि के लिए हमारी प्रतीक्षा की इस समाप्ति के लिए और संकल्प की पूर्णता के लिए आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का हृदय से आभार और अभिनंदन। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, 2014 में आपके आगमन के साथ ही भारतीय जनमानस कह उठा था कि मोरे जिय भरोस दृढ़ सोई, मिलहि राम सगुन शुभ होई। अभी गर्भगृह में वैदिक विधि विधान से रामलला के बाल विग्रह के प्राण प्रतिष्ठा को हम सब साक्षी बने हैं। अलौकिक छवि है हमारे प्रभु की, बिल्कुल वैसे ही जैसे तुलसीदास जी ने कहा कि नव कंज लोचन कंज मुख कर कंज पद कंजारुणम। धन्य है वह शिल्पी जिसने हमारे मन में बसे राम की छवि को मूर्त रूप प्रदान किया है। विचारों और भावनाओं की विहलता के बीच मुझे पूज्य संतों और अपनी गुरु परंपरा का पुण्य स्मरण हो रहा है। आज उनकी आत्मा को असीम संतोष और आनंद की अनुभूति हो रही होगी। जिन परंपराओं की पीढ़ियां श्री राम जन्मभूमि मुक्ति में अपनी आहुति दे चुकी है, उनकी पावन स्मृतियों को मैं यहां पर कोटि कोटि नमन करता हूं।
आज अयोध्या में रामलला के साथ भारत का स्व लौट के आया है। और संपूर्ण विश्व को त्रासदी से राहत देने वाला एक नया भारत खड़ा होके रहेगा, इसका प्रतीक आज का कार्यक्रम बन गया है। ऐसे समय में आपके उत्साह का, आपके आनंद का वर्णन कोई नहीं कर सकता, हम यहां पर अनुभव कर रहे, पूर्ण देश में यही वातावरण है। छोटे छोटे मंदिर के सामने दूरदर्शन पर इस कार्यक्रम को सुनने वाले हमारे समाज के करोड़ों बंधु वहां पहुंच न पाए, ऐसे घर घर के हमारे नागरिक सज्जन, माता भगिनी सब भाव विभोर है, सब में आनंद है, सब में उत्साह है। और ऐसे समय में जोश की बातों में थोड़ी सी होश की बात करने का काम मुझे ही दिया जाता है। आज हमने सुना कि इस प्राण प्रतिष्ठा महोत्सव में पधारने के पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कठोर व्रत रखा। जितना कठोर व्रत रखने को कहा था उससे कई गुना अधिक कठोर व्रताचरण उन्होंने किया। मेरे पुराना उनसे परिचय है, मैं जानता हूं वो तपस्वी है ही, परंतु वो अकेले तप कर रहे हैं, हम क्या करेंगे। अयोध्या में रामलला आए, अयोध्या से बाहर क्यों गए थे, रामायण में क्यों गए थे बाहर, तो अयोध्या में कलह हुआ। अयोध्या उस पुरी का नाम है जिसमें कोई द्वंद्व नहीं, जिसमें कोई कलह नहीं, जिसमें कोई दुविधा नहीं। वो हुआ 14 वर्ष वनवास में गए। वो सब ठीक होने के बाद दुनिया के कलह को मिटा के वापिस आए। आज रामलला वापस फिर से आए हैं 500 साल के बाद। जिनके त्याग, तपस्या, प्रयासों से ये सोने का दिन आज हम देख रहे, सुवर्ण दिवस देख रहे, उनका स्मरण प्राण प्रतिष्ठा के संकल्प में हम लोगों ने कहा, आपने सुना होगा, स्मरण किया। उनकी तपस्या को, उनके त्याग को, उनके परिश्रम को शत बार, सहस्त्र बार, कोटि बार नमन है। रामलला के यहां इस युग में आज के दिन फिर वापस आने का इतिहास जो जो श्रवण करेगा वो राष्ट्र के लिए कर्म प्रवण होगा और उसके राष्ट्र का सब दुख दैन्य हरण होगा। ऐसे इस इतिहास का सामर्थ्य है। परंतु उसमें हमारे लिए कर्तव्य का आदेश भी है। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने तप किया, अब हमको भी तप करना है। राम राज्य आने वाला है, वो कैसा था, दैहिक दैविक भौतिक तापा, राम राज नहीं कहु व्यापा, सब नर करहि परस्पर प्रीति, चलहि स्वधर्म निरत श्रुति नीति, सब निर्दंभ धर्म रत पुनि, नर अरु नारी चतुर सब गुनी, सब गुणज्ञ पंडित सब ज्ञानी, सब कृतज्ञ नहीं कपट सयानी। राम राज्य के सामान्य नागरिकों का जो वर्णन है, हम भी इस गौरवमय भारतवर्ष की संतानें हैं। कोटि कोटि कंठ उसका जयगान करने वाले हमारे हैं। हमको इस प्रकार के व्यवहार को रखने का तप आचरण करना पड़ेगा। हमको भी सारे कलह को विदाई देनी पड़ेगी। छोटे छोटे परस्पर मत रहते हैं, छोटे छोटे विवाद रहते हैं, उसको लेकर लड़ाई करने की आदत छोड़ देनी पड़ेगी। आखिर है क्या, ये बात बताई। वो सामान्य नागरिक कैसे थे, निर्दंभ प्रामाणिकता से आचरण करने वाले, केवल बातें करने वाले नहीं और बातें करके उसका अहंकार पालने वाले नहीं थे। काम करते थे, आचरण करते थे और अहंकार नहीं था।
The inauguration of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya has been celebrated by Indians around the world with great fervour. Multiple prayer ceremonies were organized at temples in major cities by the Indian diaspora. On the eve of the Pran Pratishtha ceremony, Mexico got its very first Ram Temple.
Those are 5. This is the pedestal like a Padma, or like a flower. Like a flower on the.
Jai Bolo Hanuman ki
Jai Bolo Hanuman.
And these are visuals of 25 feet tall Hanuman idol in New Jersey. As we said, the occasion of the inauguration of Ram Mandir in Ayodhya has been celebrated with great fervour by the Indian diaspora around the world, including in multiple cities in the United States. These are visuals from Times Square in New York, where laddus were celebrated to mark, were distributed, I beg your pardon, to mark the occasion. As you can see, a lot of enthusiasm there amongst the Indian diaspora in the United States. On that note, let's slip into a quick break here on Global Lens, but there's plenty more on the other side, including the latest on the US presidential election.
यह क्षण भारतीय समाज की परिपक्वता के बोध का भी क्षण है। हमारे लिए ये अवसर सिर्फ विजय का नहीं, विनय का भी है। दुनिया का इतिहास साक्षी है कि कई राष्ट्र अपने ही इतिहास में उलझ जाते हैं। ऐसे देशों ने जब भी अपने इतिहास की उलझी हुई गांठों को खोलने का प्रयास किया, उन्हें सफलता पाने में बहुत कठिनाई आई, बल्कि कई बार तो पहले से ज्यादा मुश्किल परिस्थितियां बन गई। लेकिन हमारे देश ने इतिहास की इस गांठ को जिस गंभीरता और भावुकता के साथ खोला है, वो ये बताती है कि हमारा भविष्य हमारे अतीत से बहुत सुंदर होने जा रहा है।
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Let's now get to our next story from the US. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has surprised everyone by quitting the 2024 presidential race, and he has gone ahead and endorsed Donald Trump. He quit ahead of the Republican primary election in New Hampshire, where he was polling in the single digits. DeSantis was once considered a strong contender for the party's nomination, but on Sunday he said he did not have a clear path to victory. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, Trump's last remaining challenger, said she was the only one able to beat US President Joe Biden. And Donald Trump called on his supporters to help him win by a big resounding number in New Hampshire on Tuesday, as the race for the Republican presidential nomination narrowed to him and his former UN ambassador Nikki Haley. So what went wrong for the Florida governor? Ron DeSantis cut an image of confidence in the video that launched his campaign for president last May. He had promised his supporters the great American comeback. 7 months later, the man some called Trump 2.0 and Trump without the baggage has abandoned his White House bid. His departure came with the admission that there is no clear path to victory against the dominant frontrunner for the Republican nomination. So what went wrong for the man considered a political rock star not long ago for his war on woke ideology and strong track record in office? There were plenty of challenges. Among them, a perceived lack of charisma and his awkwardness with voters. But the real reason for Ron DeSantis' downfall was simply the man he was up against, Donald Trump. He could not compete against a figure who enjoyed such unwavering support from his followers. Looking back at the campaign, experts say it was an almost impossible election cycle for a relative newcomer to the national stage. DeSantis was essentially running against an incumbent with name recognition, limitless money and a committed base of voters. DeSantis started 2023 as a very real threat to Donald Trump. He also had momentum after a record re-election victory as Florida governor the previous November. Trump, in contrast, was being blamed by many for the Republicans' disappointing midterm results. Yet that turned out to be the high watermark for the DeSantis campaign. By May, when the governor formally announced his run for the White House, his poll numbers had slumped closer to 20%. Trump had soared back above 50%. Strategists say the decision to delay the official launch wasted precious months. More importantly, it gave Trump a chance to rebuild his image as a political outsider with the help of the national headlines that surrounded his numerous legal issues. At first, DeSantis used a strategy of trying not to offend Trump, but the former president showed no such restraint, often resorting to nicknames including Meatball Ron and Ron DeSanctimonious. DeSantis' exit marks a stunning fall for a Republican who, for a time, appeared singularly positioned to pull the party from Trump's vice grip. DeSantis once seemed to have it all: money and momentum behind him, a compelling background, a generational argument and a success story to share. But what he did not have was room for error against a popular former president. Ron DeSantis' withdrawal from the GOP presidential race has placed former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley in the kind of one-on-one matchup with Donald Trump that his Republican opponents have been thirsting for since the 2016 primary race. But even that looks unlikely to slow the former president's march to his third consecutive GOP nomination. Now, the real impact of DeSantis' decision to quit may be that his endorsement of Trump, whom he had criticized with growing ferocity in the past few days, may reinforce the signal that almost all of the GOP leadership wants to wrap up the race so the party can focus on the general election against President Joe Biden. That message has already been sent by the quickening procession of GOP senators and governors who have endorsed Trump in the past few weeks. If Haley doesn't win New Hampshire, the chorus of Republicans demanding that she concede to Trump may grow deafening. Both the DeSantis and Haley camps believed that they would benefit if the other left the field and created an unambiguous one-on-one race with Trump. With DeSantis out, there is no guarantee that his supporters will migrate to Haley. In fact, both the Trump and DeSantis campaigns believe that more of the Florida governor's supporters will likely pick Trump. As New Hampshire prepares to vote, it is clear that the chances of denying Trump the nomination are dwindling. By every measure, Trump is a much more formidable opponent than he was in 2016. Trump won over 50% of the vote in Iowa last week, and in most late polls, he appears poised to crack that impressive threshold once again in New Hampshire.
Greetings from Florida. The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service. From joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq, to representing the people in the U.S. Congress, and now serving as governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president, to fight for those who have been forgotten in this country. This is America's time for choosing. We can choose to allow a border invasion, or we can choose to stop it. We can choose reckless borrowing and spending, or we can choose to limit government and lower inflation. We can choose political indoctrination, or we can choose classical education. These choices are symptoms of the underlying struggle to ensure that constitutional government can endure and that Western civilization can survive. And we launched this campaign to bring accountability to government, regain sovereignty at our border, and restore sanity to our society. We cannot succeed as a country if we allow our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased, our cities to crumble, and our kids to be indoctrinated. The DC elites who facilitated this mess do not care about you, and they do not work for you. They work for themselves. They seek to accumulate power at your expense to pursue an agenda that is harmful to the American people. Citizens do not serve politicians. It is the duty of politicians to serve you. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Reversing the decline of this nation requires leadership that delivers big results for the people we are elected to serve. I have a record of leading with conviction, championing an agenda marked by bold colors, delivering on my promises, and defeating the people who are responsible for our nation's decline. That is the type of leadership we need for all of America. Now, over the past many months, Casey and I have traveled across the country to deliver a message of hope that decline is a choice and that we can, in fact, succeed again as a nation. Nobody worked harder, and we left it all out on the field. Now, following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign.
All right, is it going to be Donald Trump and Biden once again this November? Let's now shift our focus to the Israel-Hamas war. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected a new deal offered by Hamas for the release of all the remaining hostages. Hamas has said the deal under which hostages would be released would have to include an end to the war in Gaza, Israel's complete withdrawal from the Strip, and leaving Hamas in power in the Palestinian enclave. Netanyahu said, "I work on this around the clock, but to be clear, I reject outright the terms of surrender of the monsters of Hamas. If we agree to this, we will not be able to guarantee the security of our citizens." Senior Hamas officials said the Israeli leaders' refusal to end the military offensive in Gaza means there is no chance for the return of the hostages. Netanyahu's remarks come after the Israeli Prime Minister on Saturday once again rejected calls for Palestinian sovereignty, following talks with US President Joe Biden about Gaza's future, suggesting Israel's security needs would be incompatible with Palestinian statehood. Netanyahu said, "I will not compromise on full Israeli security control over the entire territory west of Jordan, and this is contrary to a Palestinian state." President Biden has indicated he still believes Netanyahu can be convinced of a two-state solution to the conflict, as the two leaders actually remain at odds over plans for post-war Gaza. Netanyahu's opposition to a two-state solution has sparked widespread criticism from officials in the European Union capital, Brussels and Washington and elsewhere as divisions deepen between Israel and its allies and also within its own government. Netanyahu set alarm bells ringing last week when he said Israel must control security of all the land which is west of the Jordan River, ahead of a meeting in Brussels today. European Union foreign ministers criticized Netanyahu's comments, with Joseph Borrell, the EU's foreign policy chief, calling them unacceptable. Borrell questioned what alternatives remain. He asked to make all the Palestinians leave, to kill them all. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Netanyahu's opposition to a two-state solution is unacceptable. UK Defence Secretary Grant Shapps called his comments disappointing. Irish Foreign Minister Michael Martin said Netanyahu's comments were unacceptable and do not contribute in any way to the prospects of peace. He said a two-state solution is the ultimate security guarantee to Israel and its citizens and to Palestinians in terms of a future prospect of living in harmonious coexistence. Latvia's foreign minister called Netanyahu's remarks discouraging. He said, but in spite of these remarks, from the European side, we need to push in this direction. This is the only way for peace, and all of us need peace in the Middle East. Families and supporters of the Israeli hostages held by Hamas in Gaza have been rallying outside Benjamin Netanyahu's home in Jerusalem, pitching tents and demanding that the Israeli government urgently strike a deal with Hamas to secure the release of the captives. The protest comes as the Prime Minister faces intense pressure for the hostages' return, but rejected Hamas's conditions. In fact, the families of the hostages even disrupted a meeting of the Finance Committee in the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, today, demanding that more be done to secure their release. "You will not sit here while they die there," read one of the placards as more than a dozen people forced their way into the committee's meeting. A video of the scene shows security officers trying to remove the protesters. One protester shouted, "It can't go on like this. You'd better know. It can't go on like this. You will not sit here while our children die there." Meanwhile, as Israeli attacks and street battles rage across the Gaza Strip, the death toll has climbed to more than 25,000 since the war broke out in October, according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry. Over 62,000 people have been injured in this war. Israel's military says military activities in Gaza are continuing, with dozens of terrorists eliminated and large quantities of weapons located. Gaza's health ministry says at least 178 Palestinians have been killed in just the last 24 hours, one of the deadliest days of the war. Israel's military says a soldier was killed in fighting. Israeli forces and Hamas fighters clashed in several places, from Jabalia in the north to Khan Yunis in the south, the focus of recent Israeli operations. The longest communications blackout in Gaza since the beginning of the war has ended, with networks restored across the coastal enclave. Some media reports say the Israeli military has desecrated at least 16 cemeteries during its ground offensive in Gaza, leaving gravestones ruined, soil upturned, and in some cases bodies unearthed. The evidence collected by journalists from satellite imagery, social media footage, and witnessed firsthand while traveling with the IDF convoy reveals a systemic practice of destroying cemeteries in Gaza.
We are continuing the war on all fronts and in all the sectors. We are not giving immunity to any terrorist, not in Gaza, not in Lebanon, not in Syria, and not anywhere. Whoever tries to harm us, we will harm him. Regarding our hostages, we have returned home as of today 110 of our hostages, and we are obliged to returning all of them. This is one of the goals of the war, and the military pressure is a necessary condition to achieving it. I am working on this around the clock. But let it be clear, I utterly reject the Hamas monsters' capitulation terms. Hamas is demanding, in exchange for the release of our hostages, the end of the war, the withdrawal of our forces from Gaza, the release of the murderers and rapists of the Nukba, and leaving Hamas in place. Were we to agree to this, our soldiers would have fallen in vain. Were we to agree to this, we would not be able to ensure the security of our citizens. We would be unable to safely restore the evacuees to their homes, and the next October 7 would only be a question of time. I am not prepared to accept such a mortal blow to the security of Israel. Therefore, we will not agree to this. The conditions being proposed by Hamas underscore a simple point. There is no substitute for victory. Only total victory will ensure the elimination of Hamas and the return of all our hostages.
Let's now get you the latest on the recent tensions between Pakistan and Iran. Reports suggest Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian will visit Pakistan on the 29th of this month following tit-for-tat strikes in the highest-profile cross-border intrusions in recent years. The countries will also swap ambassadors and resume normal diplomatic ties on the 26th of January. An Iranian strike on Pakistan last week had sent shockwaves through the Middle East and drew a rapid military retaliation from Pakistan. It also raised fears of greater regional turmoil and instability amidst the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Some analysts as well as Iranian officials say the move that took most by surprise was driven by Iran's efforts to reinforce its internal security rather than its ambitions for the Middle East. Both the heavily armed neighbors, often at odds over instability on their frontier, now want to contain the strains resulting from the highest-profile cross-border intrusions in recent years. Iran sent shockwaves around the region last Tuesday with a missile strike against what it described as hardline Sunni Muslim militants in southwest Pakistan. 2 days later, Pakistan, in retaliation, attacked what it said were separatist militants in Iran. This was the first airstrike by warplanes on Iranian soil since the 1980-88 Iran-Iraq war. Iran's strike was one of the country's toughest cross-border assaults on the Sunni militant group, the Jaish al-Adl in Pakistan, which it says has links to the Islamic State. The move had deepened worries about Middle East instability that have spread since the Israel-Hamas war erupted on the 7th of October. Iran-allied militias from Yemen to Lebanon have launched strikes on US and Israeli targets, including on Red Sea shipping, in sympathy with Hamas. It also came a day after Iran launched attacks in Iraq and Syria, which it said targeted Israeli espionage and Islamic State operations, respectively. But the tit-for-tat blows between Iran and Pakistan occurred far from that war zone in remote borderlands where separatist groups and Islamist militants have long carried out attacks on government targets, with officials in Pakistan and Iran often accusing each other of complicity in the bloodshed. Now, some analysts say Tehran's strikes on Pakistan were motivated in large part by its rising concerns about the threat of domestic militant violence in the wake of a deadly 3rd January bombing that was claimed by the Islamic State group that left close to 100 people dead. Observers say there was a lot of domestic pressure on the Iranian government to do something, and the leadership was responding to that pressure. Pakistan had recalled its ambassador from Iran following the airstrike, and Tehran had strongly condemned Pakistan's strike, saying civilians were killed, and it summoned Pakistan's most senior diplomat to offer an explanation. But in their subsequent statements, neither government sought to make a link to the Gaza war or to attacks carried out in support of Palestinians by a network of Arab militias allied to Iran from the Mediterranean to the Gulf. In a public statement, the Foreign Ministry in Tehran had said Iran considers the security of its people and its territorial integrity as a red line and expects friendly and brotherly Pakistan to prevent armed militant bases on its soil. Analysts say for Iran, the trigger for the flare-up was that devastating bombing on the 3rd of January at a ceremony in the southeastern city of Kerman to commemorate Commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed by a US drone in 2020. Soleimani, the architect of Iran's drive to extend its influence across the Middle East, was a hero to the supporters of the hardline establishment. Tehran publicly vowed revenge against the Islamic State, the ultra-hardline Sunni Muslim terror group that claimed responsibility for the 3rd January bombing. An Iranian insider close to the country's ruling clerics described the Kerman bombing as an embarrassment for the leadership that has shown Iranian security to be vulnerable. Iran's strike on Pakistan was aimed at demonstrating the security organization's capabilities amid concern amongst Iranians about a lack of security in the country. And finally, as we wrap up this edition of Global Lens, let's get you a story from war-torn Ukraine. As the Russia-Ukraine war rages on for the 23rd month, reconstruction of Ukraine is a subject of heated domestic and international debates. But a village head decided to take matter into his own hands and brought back almost 80 families to a deserted village in the south of the country. Here's a report.
Vladimir Petroshin is head of a village that was in the middle of a battlefield. His tiny town in Ukraine's south, called Zaria, was caught in the currents of Russia's invasion in 2022. There was constant shelling and fire from phosphorus bombs, so the people who lived there fled. Not a single building remained intact. While rebuilding Ukraine is the subject of heated debate inside the country and abroad, Petroshin took matters into his own hands. When the area was retaken from Russian troops later that same year, Petroshin led a campaign to bring the villagers home and to rebuild Zaria, even though his family lost everything too.
The houses were destroyed. My own house was also destroyed. The roof scattered around the yard. We were often shelled with phosphorus bombs, and it's visible that there was a big fire inside the house. Everything burnt inside.
Volunteers gifted Petroshin a tent that he set up next to his burnt-down house. He eventually moved back into a room in his house that he managed to repair, just before the harsh winter set in. As Petroshin works to rebuild the rest, his wife and children remain in a nearby city. The tent has been converted into a makeshift warehouse for aid.
We had no electricity. We had no water. At first, 20 people came back. There was no power, and we started calling regional utility companies asking to restore the power lines. After some time, we started to have electricity again.
Now, 74 families have returned to Zaria, bringing it close to its pre-war population. Some stay in temporary containers, while others have managed to rebuild their homes and barns with materials brought by aid organizations. While the scars of war remain etched across Zaria, like this missile shell entangled in a tractor, the village is slowly coming back to life.
That's all the time we have on Global Lens tonight. If you have been, thanks for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow. Good night.
आज हमारे राम आ गए हैं। सदियों की प्रतीक्षा के बाद हमारे राम आ गए हैं। सदियों का अभूतपूर्व धैर्य, अनगिनत बलिदान, त्याग और तपस्या के बाद हमारे प्रभु राम आ गए हैं। इस शुभ घड़ी की आप सभी को, समस्त देशवासियों को बहुत बहुत बधाई। मैं अभी गर्भगृह में ईश्वरीय चेतना का साक्षी बनकर आपके सामने उपस्थित हुआ हूं। कितना कुछ कहने को है, लेकिन कंठ अवरुद्ध है। मेरा शरीर अभी भी स्पंदित है, चित्त अभी भी उस पल में लीन है। हमारे रामलला अब टेंट में नहीं रहेंगे। हमारे रामलला अब इस दिव्य मंदिर में रहेंगे। मेरा पक्का विश्वास है, अपार श्रद्धा है कि जो घटित हुआ है इसकी अनुभूति देश के, विश्व के कोने कोने में राम भक्तों को हो रही होगी। ये क्षण अलौकिक है, ये पल पवित्रतम है। ये माहौल, ये वातावरण, ये ऊर्जा, ये घड़ी प्रभु श्री राम का हम सब पर आशीर्वाद है। 22 जनवरी 2024 का ये सूरज एक अद्भुत आभा लेकर आया है। 22 जनवरी 2024 ये कैलेंडर पर लिखी एक तारीख नहीं, ये एक नए काल चक्र का उद्गम है। ये राम के रूप में राष्ट्र चेतना का मंदिर है। राम भारत की आस्था है, राम भारत का आधार है, राम भारत का विचार है, राम भारत का विधान है, राम भारत की चेतना है, राम भारत का चिंतन है, राम भारत की प्रतिष्ठा है, राम भारत का प्रताप है, राम प्रवाह है, राम प्रभाव है, राम नेति भी है, राम नीति भी है, राम नित्यता भी है, राम निरंतरता भी है, राम विभु है, विशद है, राम व्यापक है, विश्व है, विश्वात्मा है।
Welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Here are the top 9 headlines today. The eagerly anticipated inauguration ceremony of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya is complete, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi performing the Pran Pratishtha. Prime Minister Modi called January 22nd the beginning of a new era and the temple construction a reflection of Indian society's maturity. The new Ramlala idol was installed during the hour-long ceremony. Karnataka-based sculptor Arun Yogiraj, who created the Ramlala idol for the Ram temple in Ayodhya, called himself the luckiest person on earth. Celebrities including movie stars Amitabh Bachchan, Rajnikant, Chiranjeevi, Vicky Kaushal, Katrina Kaif and Ranbir Kapoor attended the Pran Pratishtha ceremony. A Chinese spy ship, the Xiangyang Hong 3, was spotted in the Indian Ocean headed for Malé. Beijing's deep water forays in the South Indian Ocean has been a point of contention between India and China. In December last year, Sri Lanka turned down Beijing's request to allow Chinese research vessels to operate within its EEZ for 1 year. In other news, Japan's Sony Group has called off its $10 billion merger of its India operations with Zee Entertainment. The termination follows a stalemate over whether Zee CEO Puneet Goenka, under investigation by India's capital market regulator, can lead the merged entity. Dense to very dense fog and severe cold wave conditions are expected to persist over North India for the next 5 days, says the Met Office. The areas likely to be affected include Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Delhi, Rajasthan, Haryana and Madhya Pradesh. A landslide in southwestern China's mountainous Yunnan province has buried 47 persons and forced the evacuation of 500 others. In West Asia, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected conditions presented by Hamas to end the war and release hostages. These included complete withdrawal of troops and leaving Hamas in power in Gaza. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has withdrawn from the 2024 presidential race and endorsed former US President Donald Trump. 22nd of January 2024 is not a date written on a calendar. This is the origin of a new era. Prime Minister Modi said these words today as he led the Pratishtha ceremonies of the idol of Lord Rama in Ayodhya. Now, why is this a date with history? Joining me to discuss this are Sadhvi Pragya, Hindu Dharma Guru, Neena Rai, author of the amazing Ayodhya, and my colleague Kartikeya Sharma. Welcome to the News9 Plus show. I want to start by asking Neena, the author of amazing Ayodhya. Neena, what is the significance of the event that we witnessed today? Why did the Prime Minister say this was the start of a new era?
So, if you remember your history correctly, the first Diwali comes when Sri Ram comes to Ayodhya after only 14 years of Vanvas. This Diwali is after 500 years of Vanvas and 500 years of non-stop struggle by people who neither forgot nor forgave.
Right.
This is why this is supposed to be such a grand Diwali, and this is why this is the dawn of a new era. This is a dawn of a new Hindu, a new culture, a new pride in the masses of this country. This is the main important part of it.
Right. Sadhvi ji, I want to ask you, इस दिन का क्या महत्व है और why should we celebrate this as another Diwali, as Neena just mentioned?
संदीप जी, आपने तो बहुत ही अच्छा पूछा है. So first of all, my heartfelt wishes for profound joy and divine blessings on this occasion of Lord Ram's homecoming, because this was the day we all were eagerly waiting for. So I wish happy Diwali to everybody. Happy Ram Diwali, I would say, because it holds spiritual significance all of our lives. You know, to all my fellow Indians across the globe who are immersed in the profound significance of this day, celebrating the return of Lord Ram. So happy Ram Diwali to everyone. Now, why do we celebrate this as Diwali, as asked by you?
Yes.
See, today, India has scripted a new history. The anticipation for the Ram Mandir was not just felt by the people of India, but by every devotee of Lord Ram worldwide.
Right.
One thing we often forget to mention is Lord Sri Ram's own anticipation, his own wait, you know. So today, as Prime Minister Modi ji acknowledged and apologized to Lord Ram while speaking, he expressed his regret, you know, that it took us so long to restore your rightful place.
Right.
And by saying this, he became emotional also. So this is the truth. I've been talking about how our Lord Ram has witnessed the longest wait, spending years in a tent. So I would like to congratulate Prime Minister Modi ji also. It is his visionary leadership and relentless dedication, I would say, that have been instrumental in overcoming challenges and navigating the complexities associated with the construction of the Ram Mandir, as we all know.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sadhvi ji. 14 years versus 500 years, a wait of 500 years. Kartikeya, you heard the speech. Now, very interestingly, the Prime Minister spoke of Mata Shabri, Nishad Raj, Hanuman, of course. You're a keen political watcher. Is this another version of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas? Is there an underlying political messaging of the Prime Minister's speech today?
You know, there are a couple of them, you know. And the one which really caught my eye was on the Supreme Court. You know, though he said a lot of things.
He's commended the Supreme Court.
He's commented on Supreme Court, and you know, I don't think there could have been a stronger statement than that, because Prime Minister has said संविधान के अस्तित्व में आने के बाद भी दशकों तक प्रभु श्री राम के अस्तित्व को लेकर कानूनी लड़ाई चली. But the line is, मैं आभार व्यक्त करूंगा भारत की न्यायपालिका का जिसने न्याय की लाज रखी।
Right.
न्याय के पर्याय प्रभु राम का मंदिर भी न्यायबद्ध तरीके से ही बना।
My God, this is the Congress's poll plank.
So basically he said that न्याय की लाज रखी,
Right.
which means that at least you understood the aspiration of a billion strong country.
Yes.
There were people and parties and organization, quote unquote, who did not understand that.
Right.
So that is one takeaway. Another takeaway was of Mohan Bhagwat,
Yeah.
when he said, I have to end up, I end up saying hard things, tough things.
Yes.
Basically he's saying that, well, if we want to be a sort of a big powerful country,
Yeah.
strong economy, then we need to reconcile our differences. Because
Right.
there is a feeling within Bharatiya Janata Party
Yes.
and RSS also that this is a great achievement.
Yes.
But previous elections were not won on Ram Mandir.
Right.
The first election was won on the issue of governance,
Yes.
anti-corruption. The second election was won on the issue of nationalism.
And delivery of
and the
services.
delivery,
Yes.
Labharti.
Of course.
So they understand what they have achieved.
Yes.
What they require with it is, and it's a message to their workers,
Right.
is namrata.
Right. Right.
Namrata. So I think that's the subtext of it.
Right.
I think they don't want everyone to go gung-ho about it,
Yeah.
because the achievement is so it's huge. Imagine from 49, when there was a difference between personal belief and public expression.
Yes.
Nehruvian discourse of governance.
Right.
Today the private and the public merged.
Yes.
Private and the public merged. It's a significant shift.
Absolutely.
I am not saying that this is a representation or reflection of Prime Minister's spiritual religious belief. I think corporally, there is a shift in the way we see and define our nationhood.
Absolutely. I'm going to come back to you on that, Karthik. A very important point that you've raised, and I have another question related to that. But first, Neena, I want to ask you, as a Sanskrit scholar, the Prime Minister said this, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. Among the many messages that he's mentioned in his speech, he spoke of this unwavering faith in Indian culture as being this all-inclusive culture. Tell us the significance of this one line and the biggest message that came out of the Prime Minister's speech.
Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina means may everything, everybody be happy.
Right.
That which exists, may it be happy. This is already spoken in our scriptures.
Right.
Unless everything is happy. So whenever we wish, please understand this, in spirituality and esoteric wisdom, whenever we wish good for somebody,
Yes.
we are nothing but conduits for that good to come through us as
Right,
well.
right.
So this is a blessing, and in giving this blessing, we also bless ourselves,
Right.
because that good comes through us. Also, Modi ji apologized for having the Ram Mandir, building that Ram Mandir
Yes.
very late. See, we've already waited for 500 years. Modi ji was in the Rath Yatra with Advani ji
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
So while in the media circles, while in other circles, there's this thing that, the Ram Mandir, it wasn't an issue. Let me tell you, I used to live in Dubai, and I left that country, came to India so that I could participate and make him win the elections.
Right.
The Karyakarta,
Yeah.
there's this huge thing in other parties, they think Karyakartas are nobody.
Right.
But Karyakartas are very important in the Sangh Parivar,
Yes.
in the BJP, and sometimes the Karyakarta decides the fate of the leader.
Right.
If the Karyakarta goes against you, you cannot do anything,
Right.
right? In the manifesto of BJP,
Yeah.
Ram Mandir was there.
Yes.
And if you spoke to the Karyakarta, amongst the Karyakartas, I will tell you that was one of the most important things that they wanted.
Yes.
What they project, what they say is another story.
Yeah.
And then if you remember clearly, at the end of the second tenure,
Right.
this had been postponed further.
Yes.
The Ram Mandir judgment has been postponed further.
Yes.
So we see that delay from the time that he was in the Rath Yatra
Of
to even
yes.
now.
Right.
It's been many, many years.
So in a sense, he was also apologizing for that delay in taking up that issue of the temple. But Sadhviji, this question is that the invoking of Ram as a sacred civilizational symbol of Indian culture, is this the closest that we are coming to, say, a Ram Rajya? Based on all the right principles that have been mentioned, this a figure who embodies honor, sacrifice, courage, justice, duty, making that person the cornerstone of your outreach. is this the beginning of the kind of Ram Raj that we have been talking about? A all-inclusive Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha kind of Ram Raj? Do you see this as the beginning of that day?
Sandeep, when you talk about Lord Ram and Ram Mandir, I'd like to say, this Navya, Divya and Bhavya Ram Mandir is truly a spectacle that surpasses imagination. We never imagined, that we would be able to actually witness this historic event in our lifetime.
Right.
And I remember the times when the slogans were raised, Saugand Ram ki khate hain, mandir wahi banayenge.
Yes.
And the opposition used to mock by saying, mandir wahi banayenge, tarikh nahi batayenge.
Right.
And today is the day, 22nd January 2024. That long-awaited day has finally arrived.
Yes.
So it would not be an exaggeration to claim that in the age of Kali Yuga, we are catching a glimpse of Ram Yuga.
Yes.
That's what you asked. So I would say, I would like to also mention Yogi Adityanath ji here.
Yeah.
Yogi Adityanath ji, he said in his speech that in Ayodhya, instead of bullets, lamps will now be kindled. Such a strong statement, such a strong and positive message across the country. So in every corner of this vast and diverse land, people unite in joyous celebration, transcending differences and embracing a shared spiritual fervor. It is a day where the essence of Sanatan Dharma permeates through the fabric of our existence, forging connections beyond the physical realm. It is a day to celebrate.
It's a day to celebrate indeed, and it's another Diwali, as my panelists were mentioning. Karthika, on your earlier point, the fact that Prime Minister Nehru, when he inaugurated the Bhakra Nangal Dam, he called it the temple of modern India, implying that temples, industries, factories were going to be the new progressive India, leaving the past behind. Now, Prime Minister Modi, a few days back, inaugurated the longest sea bridge, right, which is going to transform Mumbai and indeed Western India. And today he inaugurated the temple. Probably the first Prime Minister to openly come out for a temple inauguration like this. Do you see this as a rise of a India that's more confident with its past and allowing it to coexist with the future?
There are three strands here. If you look at our history, post 1857, the earlier writers like Aurobindo, Vivekanand, if you go through Anand Math or Gokhale or Tilak, they derive inspiration, and they use the word Hindutva, Hindu, and they derive inspiration from the homeland, which is sacred in nature.
Yes.
I'm not getting into Punyu Bhumi and Pitru Bhumi, that is a different thing, but it is sacred in nature. Now, that is one part of it, and this sacred homeland or revered homeland is common to both two atheists, Savarkar and Jawaharlal Nehru, but it takes a different turn. Nehru was more invested in science, and he was more invested in Western modernity.
Yeah.
Now, Savarkar was also rooted in Western modernity, but his idea of nationhood or the foundation of it was based on a sense of Bharatvarsh.
Right.
It's like when Gandhi met Savarkar for the first time,
Yes.
Savarkar was blanching prawns,
Right.
So Gandhi had a huge problem. One. The second strand of that answer is on the Ram Raj. You use the word. Gandhi's Ram Raj was slightly benign. And Gandhi had this, if I may use the word, obsession with Hindu-Muslim unity. Starting from Khilafat, even his response to Mopla.
Right.
These are all written records, these are not oral history, written record. He had this obsession, so the concession would go. Or even during when Noha Khalifate happened, it created a lot of outrage, but then Gandhi had this thing. And Gandhi never visited temple.
Yeah.
His Ram Raj was there, but he never visited temple. When we come down to this line of cultural assertiveness, this is more in line of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, Tilak, Gokhale, Sardar Patel, Govind Vallabh Pant. A part of it went to the Congress, which is, it is okay to assert your cultural Hindu identity.
Right.
It is okay to celebrate that in public.
Yes.
It is okay to be a devout, doesn't mean that you are a rowdy or you are a conservative or you belong to bygone era.
Yes.
It is okay to say that you worship this god, deity.
Right.
You will never find Gandhi in front of a deity.
Yeah.
Never. But Prime Minister Modi, you'll find his lot of pictures in front of temple. So we have to understand what Prime Minister has done is not a discontinuity.
Yeah.
It starts from Anand Math.
Right.
It is a continuous process. It is just that line of people involved in Reformation during the British time were more involved in the internal issue, caste discrimination, or the Child Marriage Act, for example, the Sarda Act. You know, most of them were, you would say that they are right-wing Hindus, but you know, they were more informed or more concerned about the reform side of things. So what the Prime Minister has done is by publicly acknowledge it. Some would say, like Indol Singh Gupta, that it's a second republic. But I would say that it culturally, through democratic means, displaced the consensus of the First Republic. Technically, the people, the way they imagine themselves in the Benedict Anderson's book, The Imagined Community, we have started to reimagine this country in a different way, which has more cultural connect with its past.
Very interesting points there, Karthikeyan.
Young country, old nation.
Young country, old nation. In fact, this is the thing, and the Prime Minister seems to have, you know, said that we are actually a continuation of the past. And India was not born in 1947. India as a political entity may have been born in 47, but we are a 5,000 year civilization.
8,000 years now, by records.
8,000, it's
archaeological records.
Absolutely. Archaeology is, you know, unearths amazing surprises all the time. And, you know, that point that you mentioned over there, Rakhi Gadi, that's a separate discussion. But this point of the Prime Minister, that making it a civilizational continuum, how important is that in the light of the ceremony today?
It is extremely important, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people think that modernity is disconnected from cultural identity. So in order to be progressive, you cannot have your cultural identity with you. Whereas in the Hindu culture, both of them go hand in hand. People talk of Ram Rajya. So I hope that is clear. We can go hand in hand. Even ancient Ayodhya used to have the latest weapons, the most modern weapons. It was extremely well planned. It was expanded when it needed to. It had the security and the defense system. We were discussing it. So all of that was there. It was not against modernity. It was not against upgradation. Today, we feel that if we upgrade, we are going to discontinue from a culture. This is very wrong. And people only yap about Ram Rajya. They have no idea about what Ram Rajya exactly is. Ram Rajya is the same as Dashrath Rajya. Ram Rajya is the same as Ikshvaku Rajya. Ram Rajya is the same as Raghu Rajya. What were the three basic points of these valiant kings? That is why they were able to hold the chair, hold their, you know, Singhasan in Ayodhya and rule the world through them. The first was Param Dharmatma. Param Dharmatma, devout Hindus, upholders of Dharma. Which Dharma? Sanatan Dharma. Ram is a Sanatani, Raghu is a Sanatani, Dashrath is a Sanatani, right? There is no secularism which makes you feel ashamed of being Hindu. He is the upholder of Dharma and Nyaya. The second thing, Veer, brave, you are trained, you are mentally strong, you know, at least mental and physical strength, which our country also needs to show. Because unless there is strength, there is no respect. Unless you have strength, you cannot, till the time you have the power to do hinsa, you cannot claim ahimsa. A weak man cannot say, I am ahimsak. No, you are not ahimsak. You are weak. You can be killed tomorrow. The only people who have the right to claim that I am ahimsak are the ones who have the capacity for hinsa. The third thing, satyavadi, which means that whatever they say is etched in stone. If they say this is going to happen, they make it happen. This is the reason why even Ram Bhagwan went for 14 years of Vanvas and did not come back on repeated requests. Otherwise, his father would have been a liar. So this is the thing. This is what Ram Rajya is all about. And let me just end this by saying, things are impossible till the time they are done by somebody, and then they become possible. So Modi is one man who did it, and like they say, jhukti hai dunya, jhukane wala chahiye.
Bilkul. And Sadhvi ji, Modi's mission possible is what Neena ji just mentioned. We were talking about civilizational continuity. The fact that Ram Rajya actually doesn't, mean a break from the past. It means a continuum, right? You're a young nation, as Karthikeyan mentioned, but with an ancient past. How do you see Ram Rajya playing out in the context of...
Young country and an old nation.
Young country and old nation. I stand corrected. A young country and an old nation, an ancient civilization, 5,000, 8,000 years. How do you see this playing out in the years ahead? Now, the Prime Minister has mentioned that this is the start of a 1,000-year epoch. Explain for us why it's a continuum and it's not going back to the past. It's a looking ahead kind of thing, more about looking on the road ahead rather than looking in the rearview mirror.
Okay, see, Sandeep, if we talk about the temples, right? Right now we're talking about the Ram Mandir, and if we talk about the strong Indian value system, see, when the invaders they attacked our country, why they attacked places like Ayodhya, Kashi, and Mathura? Were they business centers? Were they military centers? Were they tourist spots at that time? No. But why they attacked? Because they knew that they hold utmost importance to us. Temples are the centers of collective faith.
Yes.
They're very important. They're the centers of education integration, spiritual integration, and cultural integration. That is why they attacked. So that means they knew the importance of temple. So that is destroying the temple, meaning destroying our national pride.
Right.
So that is why it is very important to restore it. And as we are able to do that by the efforts of and unwavering dedication of Prime Minister and Yogi ji, so I would say कि ये बहुत ज़्यादा important है कि हम ये चीज़ समझें कि हम कहाँ जा रहे हैं, और ये जो हम अपनी पास्ट कल्चर को, या पास्ट तो नहीं कहना चाहिए बट ये कह सकते हैं कि रिच कल्चर को हम रीगेन कर रहे हैं. So this will leave an impact on especially the mindsets of the youth, because when Prime Minister visits the temples, they carry profound messages especially for the younger generation, I would say. See, in the past 10 days, we've seen Prime Minister visiting a lot of temples related to Ram Mandir and sending across a message. So what's the message that youth can take from this? It is like, I would say, Prime Minister inspires the youth by showcasing the harmonious coexistence of modernity and tradition. It sends a message that one can embrace technological advancements and contemporary ideas while staying rooted in timeless cultural and spiritual values. This is very important.
Absolutely.
And also,
when we talk about modernity, there are two issues here. One is that the previous governments were only invested in medieval late modernities. The investment went to Bhopal, it went to Old Delhi. Even if you look at the architecture, which is Rajputana architecture, it incorporates Mughal forms. The distinct Hindu-ness in Rajputana is not visible because things changed in the last 1,000 years. The last of such architecture was Vijayanagar. The remnant of something can be seen in Jagannath Puri or Kashi, which is being done, or Ayodhya being redone. You see, what happened during colonial time was that what Indians encountered in forms of modern or the Western modernity in form of a Western form, it became alien. That is why Gandhi keeps on saying, our true India lives in rural areas. No, it is because you only encountered that urbanized space in form of a Western model. But India had its urban spaces. Rakhigadi, Harappa, Ayodhya, Magadh. The last was in medieval India, Vijayanagar. Those spaces became culturally and spiritually empty. There were very few lived forms. Others were contested like Mathura and Kashi. Some were erased like Ayodhya. So what Modi has done is he's trying to resurrect these older ancient urban sacred spaces, because most of these temples were not made in rural India. Most of these divine temples were in the heart of urban centers. So that is where when Prime Minister says, मंदिरों का जीर्णोद्धार, सिर्फ मंदिरों का जीर्णोद्धार नहीं हो रहा है, जीर्णोद्धार उस spiritual cultural space का हो रहा है, which stood forgotten, because history is about memories. Memories reshape your history.
Absolutely.
It's a two-way process.
Yeah, and Karthikeya, that's a related question to that is that as Sadhviji was mentioning, that the Prime Minister has been touring the country, various temples, north, south, everywhere, and the Ayodhya movement began as a religious movement. It then became a political movement, and now it seems to be a national movement, especially in the light of the Prime Minister's speech.
I would say that Ayodhya had many andolans in last 500 years. Sikhs were involved, vagabonds were involved, the sadhus were involved, akhadas were involved. But I think two people played a distinct role in it, and we must take their name. Bala Saheb Devras, the Sarsanga Chalak. I would say that he can be credited for one fact, that if he wouldn't have been there, RSS would have become a cult. For example, no hero worship, retirement, Prachar Vibhag, work against caste, asking VHP to adopt this. And it is in his tenure that Atal Bihari Vajpayee was, during his lifetime, could become the Prime Minister for 13 days. So the second person was Ashok Singhal.
Yes.
They actually
BHP.
laid the foundation of it because
Of the
they
movement.
realized even then in 83, and if you read those books associated
Yes.
with Ashok Singhal, they knew it is not a temple.
Yeah.
It is about the national identity.
It's
Even
about- yeah.
then they could have made temple anywhere.
Yes.
But it was about national identity,
important,
and it was about reclaiming it.
Yes.
That if people believe that the Ram was born there,
Yeah.
then the matter ends there.
Right.
Because that is why when they said it's a title suite,
Yeah.
it was argued it's a matter of faith.
Right. Absolutely.
That is why he said, na, "Nyay ki laaj rakhi."
Very, very important point there. And Modi's mission possible is actually more than just about a temple. It's, as Kartikeya said, it's about the reclaiming of a national identity. And that is one reason why the 22nd of January 2024 is going to live through history. I'd like to thank Sadhviji for joining us this evening. Thank you very much for your insights, Sadhviji. Kartikeya and Neena will continue with me on the next segment. Thank you. In Hinduism, artha, that's material wealth, has always been part of the four purusharthas or goals of human life. One of them is dharma, that's righteousness and moral values. Now the Ram temple is the embodiment of dharma meeting artha. Now, over $10 billion worth of investments in infrastructure projects, new airports, improved roads. Ayodhya is set to welcome between 50 to 100 million visitors annually, says a recent report. How will the spin-off of Ramnomics help the Indian economy? Joining me to discuss this is economist Sharad Kohli and my co-panelists Neena and Kartikeya. Sharad, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you so much. Pleasure connecting with you.
Yes, I want to start by asking you, Sharad, how will Ayodhya spur the revival of India's tourism sector, particularly religious tourism?
Well, if I was to put your question in past tense, it has already done that. In fact, if you see the number of people, who came today, if we take 22nd of January,
yes,
you had about 8,000 guests, and there was no place to park the jets. They had to be parked all over the place in the nearby states. You had private jets. Obviously, today was about VIPs and those celebrities and special invitees and so on and so forth. But I think there are crores of people who are waiting to visit. So I think, as you rightly said, 100 million visitors, and when you talk of 100 million visitors, you can talk the impact on the economy. It can do wonders to not just the Ayodhya economy. Ayodhya is a small town, but the nearby towns, say for example Lucknow, then the whole state of Uttar Pradesh, and then the whole country by itself. I mean, I won't be surprised that a lot of people from abroad, especially the diaspora, the Indian diaspora, and I spoke to some of them last night. They said, one of them was saying, I haven't been to India for the last 15 years, but now I have to come because of Ayodhya. And obviously, when one is going to come to Ayodhya, he's going to travel around the country, not just Ayodhya. So I think it's going to do wonders to the economy. And as far as Ayodhya itself is concerned, there are about 50 big hotel chains that I know, who have already put their hotels on the plan. I think some of them already in the construction stage, some are on the planning stage, and they're going to come up in the next couple of years. You're going to see a lot of hotels there. So far as I know, there are about 152 hotels already in Ayodhya. And to the best of my information, another 153 dharamshalas are there.
This is notwithstanding the 400 odd homestays which are already functional in Ayodhya. So I think these numbers are going to swell. And a classic example is declaration of a township by one of the, I'm not sure if I should be naming the developer here because we don't want to give them free advertisement. But there is a very renowned developer who's announced a township where some of the celebrities have gone on to bought plots. So, each rupee, in the laws of economics, each rupee added in the infrastructure. Or for a simple road, there's Ram Path. There are so many roads, new roads, which we've been witnessing in the media. People who didn't go, who've been watching this on various platforms of media. Each rupee has got a 8 to 10 times multiplier effect. The road constructed can really boost the economy around the place. The restaurants come up, the eating joints come up, construction happens, shopping malls come up, shopping areas come up. People start living there, schools open up, hospitals open up, clinics open up. I think tremendous employment opportunities which are generated. So, there is a confederation called Confederation of All India Traders, CAIT, which had given an estimate of 50,000 crores booster dose to the economy because of this. But my own estimate says this could easily cross 100,000 crore rupees.
Well,
I mean, just in
Sharad,
Delhi.
the CAIT revised its estimates to double it. They're saying it's a lakh crore.
Prime Minister, Prime Minister has already married it to his Labharti politics. Because generally, this Bretton Woods institutions, when they would argue that, the public investments crowd out the private investments, PM had turned it on its head during COVID. He used the public investment to spur the private sector. The second part is we just need to see what has happened in Kashi. Look at the trade, look at the planes, number of planes they land, look at the number of tourists that go. And secondly, we have to understand when we talk about religious tourism, it has to be seen from a pilgrim's eye. Sanitation, cleanliness, ability to eat, clean rooms, to organize yourself. Imagine yourself 20 years ago going to Kashi Vishwanath temple was hell, It was, I had been there, it was really problematic. Today, I can go there as a tourist. Next day, I can go there as a devotee. Third day, I can just be like a civilian and sit there and pass my time in front of Ganga. So, it's the multiple level of experience that Kashi built. I think it will be replicated to a grander scale when it comes to Ayodhya. But you see what Prime Minister has done? He has married it to his Labharti politics. And what has he said? सूर्यवंशी भगवान श्री राम के आलोक से विश्व के सभी भक्तगण सदैव ऊर्जा प्राप्त करते हैं। आज अयोध्या के प्राण प्रतिष्ठा के शुभ अवसर पर मेरा ये संकल्प और प्रशस्त हुआ है कि भारतवासियों के घर की छत पर उनका अपना सोलर रूफ टॉप सिस्टम हो। अयोध्या से लौटने के बाद मैंने पहला निर्णय किया है कि हमारी सरकार 1 करोड़ घरों पर रूफटॉप सोलर लगाने के लक्ष्य के साथ प्रधानमंत्री सूर्योदय योजना प्रारंभ करेगी। You can't beat this man.
No, he is number of messages.
You can't beat him.
I think we'll spend all week and all of this year decoding all the multiple messages in that one speech that he gave today, especially when it comes to Ramanomics. But Neena, you've been a big votary of pilgrimage tourism, as you like to call it. How will this, as Karthik was mentioning, Varanasi the numbers are zooming. It's 7 crore tourists in 2022, Goa with just 85 lakh. How does Ayodhya become the model for new temple towns, pilgrimage centers?
So the reason I call it pilgrimage, or if you want to add the word tourism, it's up to you. But a lot of devotees go there. The first desire of a person who goes there, the person who desires is a devotee. Everybody who goes there is crying today, is happy, they're tweeting their pictures. You see why? Because there are devotees who go there. Now Ayodhya is still a very small place. When we claim tourism, that means that it's open and free for all and everybody comes. Not everybody who comes there is a devotee. So the devotees feel very offended. Therefore, we should rightly sort of give them the due. It is pilgrimage. If you want to add tourism, that's another thing. So this is one thing. And whatever figures that you are coming up with, let me tell you, if the Modi and the Yogi government can handle the infrastructure well, the figures that you have estimated, it will be beaten. For the simple reason, forget the economics. If I talk of spirituality, wherever there is Narayan, Shri is always with him. Lakshmi is always with him. So wherever he will go, Shri is going to follow him. That which can sustain, Lakshmi will come to him. So we have that part of it as well. And so in Hinduism, wealth
Yeah.
and spirituality are not separate from each
Yes.
other. They are together. In fact, there is a very beautiful shlok in the Hitopdesh, and Hitopdesh is written thousands of years ago.
Please tell us. Yeah.
So Hitopdesh tells Hindus or anybody who reads it, it says that this is how you should lead your life.
Right.
You should do the work of dharma as if Yamraj or death itself has held you by your shikha. So
Right.
it's caught you by its
Right,
shikha,
right.
you can die any second.
Yes.
So you do the dharma ka karya as
Right.
if death is imminent. Okay.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to education and earth, earning wealth and education, learn education
Yes.
as if you will never grow old.
Right.
Okay, you will never die, and you will never grow old.
Yeah.
And earn wealth. So you do all of this as if you will live forever.
Right.
And you will never grow old.
Right, but the important takeaway in that first part is the timelines. Yeah, it's important to maintain timelines, especially when it comes to creating infrastructure, Sharad.
Yes.
And that's one thing that we've been lagging in, the creating of infrastructure. And in Ayodhya, I think we've seen a lot of infrastructure being rolled out in record time, in like 3 or 4 years. What more does the government really need to do to make religious centers accessible to people? Because, like, figures are there. It says 60% of Indian tourism is primarily religious tourism.
Well, the answer lies in your question itself. If 22nd January was the date fixed for consecration, I think there was a timeline there, and they were running
Right.
from pillar to post to make sure that most of it is ready, if not all of it is ready. So the best way to answer your
Yes,
question
yes.
is to set another timeline.
Right.
Maybe by next Ram Navami, have a target. Then by the next Ram Navami, have another target. By Deepavali, have another target. I think we
Right.
in India, we are used to working under pressure.
Yeah.
We like to meet timelines, deadlines, but when there is no timeline and deadline, sometimes you're right. The pace
Yeah.
of infrastructure development runs slow. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
But I think as far as Ayodhya is concerned, it's going to remain a focal point for a very long time. So I really don't think that slow pace syndrome
Yeah.
is going to catch up to Ayodhya. Ayodhya will continue because the funds have been allocated, the funds have been dedicated. I mean, so far as I know, 126 new projects have been signed off already.
Right.
And they're just waiting. Most of them were waiting for this day to be over because it would have created more chaos
Right.
if a new project is launched while there is so much of movement around the city in such a tiny little place. So I think these 126 odd projects are going to catch up pace starting tomorrow. That's my first take. Then also, Ayodhya has a population of about 3.5 odd lakhs.
Yeah.
And it has caught up to about 5 lakhs already. So more and more people want to move to Ayodhya. I've seen
Yeah.
this happening in, a classic example is Vrindavan, which is very near to Mathura. It's about 10 kilometers from Mathura. And the number of people who moved there dwelling in Vrindavan ever since, this Vrindavan corridor was declared, although
Yes.
it's going through some court processes, and there are some clearances which are being waited. There is some local protest also, because you have to break certain part of Vrindavan to make sure that corridor comes
Right,
up.
right.
But in anticipation, people have already moved in. So this is another phenomena that the moment the place becomes more organized, more
Accessible.
updated in terms of infrastructure, more and more people move in. So with more people moving in, that's an automatic boost to Ramonomics or
Right.
Ayodhyanomics, whatever you want to call it. It just
Absolutely.
boosts naturally.
Yeah.
You've got more people living in there. So I think Ayodhya is an exception to the slow pace.
Yeah.
I say that Ayodhya will be bitten by the Gati Shakti. But for rest of the country, I agree there is a need to catch pace. But there are limitations of resources. There are limitations of
Right.
bureaucracy. There are various other limitations which have been plaguing our country for a very long time, which will take a while to go, altogether.
Right. It'll take a while to go, but Karthika, very interesting, the point that 4 of these centers are now in Uttar Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh has also got Kashi, Mathura, Vrindavan, and now Ayodhya. It's got the largest number of expressways that are in construction. You think that the $1 trillion economy target that Uttar Pradesh has set could actually be met to a greater extent by these
I think
projects?
I think religious tourism can contribute a lot. I understand why Prime Minister says so. Sandeep, it's easier to go to Jaffna, to go to Kandy,
Yes,
to Hanbandota
yes.
than have a vacation in
Superb,
Jaisalmer in
yes.
winters. It's so expensive.
It's all interconnected,
It's
all
so
of this,
interconnected.
yeah.
You ask me going to Goa in winters or to go to some place in Laos, I'll
Yeah.
go to Laos, it's cheaper. But you see, when it comes to matter of faith, Kedarnath is not going to be in Cambodia.
Right.
So, you know, if the experience can be nice, or for like Prime Minister 2019, what did he do? He went to Kedarnath.
Yes.
He made that cave. Now there is a booking of that cave for, and it runs for 6 months,
right.
5 months. So I think he's investing a bit of himself in every religious site.
It's brand Modi.
Branding,
and you know, I had that
it.
thing, Dina,
and
a couple
secondly,
of days back.
if you can organize religious, at least in Hindu context, if you can make it women friendly, women safe, child friendly,
right.
Food friendly, sanitation friendly, bathrooms, and make it an experience, because there is also one more thing. In Sanatan Dharma, you can have your prayer or your puja, and then you can also be a yatri.
Yes.
आप एक डिवोटी भी हो सकते हैं, और कहने के मतलब आप एक भक्त भी हो सकते हैं और यात्री भी हो सकते हैं. It depends. पूजा अकेले की और यात्रा परिवार के साथ की. So you know, it will spur a different sort of economy.
Right.
It's like street foods of Indore, no vegetarian.
And the yatri in this case is Prime Minister Modi.
So if it is family safe, women safe, children friendly, I think then you will be able to save your foreign reserves.
Forex reserves, absolutely. And you know, we were just talking about this recently, Karthikeya, on the fact that how when Prime Minister Modi was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he needed Amitabh Bachchan to come and sell Gujarat tourism.
Correct.
And today he's the biggest brand in the country. There's no doubting that. And whatever he does, everyone follows.
Let me put it this way, even at the cost of sounding brash, there was a time when all the people who were sitting way beyond the reach of the cameras. Today.
Yes.
He would require them on the dais when he launched the Gujarat, you know, that summit.
Course.
All of them were on the dais.
Right.
And you know, and he had to organize it that way, because
he was showcasing down the Saryu since then.
Today, all of them were sitting there.
Right.
And he was the only one on the dais.
So brand Modi has
life
arrived.
has come a full circle.
Life has come a full circle. But you know, this point about the Prime Minister going and, you know, pushing Indian tourism, you know, getting Indian tourists to visit Indian shrines, Indian beaches and all that. How does all this, you know, mesh into this thing of pilgrimages and all that, which...
Well, he's doing the right thing. He's setting himself as an example why to go abroad, and he's gone ahead and said those things. Do not go to Thailand for weddings. Come to Uttarakhand for weddings. So what he's doing is he's inspiring Indians to be in India and to experience India and to do pilgrimage or tourism in India. And like you rightly said, that whenever we go somewhere, we are yatris. So wherever you go to Banaras, they'll say, "Arey, did you have that tamatar wali chaat which is in this shop?" Right? Did you have this lassi at this ghat? Whether you go to Vrindavan, so in Vrindavan they say right after you get out of this temple, you must eat this food. You must go to this cave. You must go here. You must go to this temple. So, so that economy, that food, people who are fond of food, people who are fond of traveling, people who are fond of nature, their gardens, there are so many beautiful things. There is so much beauty in our country. We underestimate it, and we also have not planned it. Why? Because Indian leaders lacked a vision. Now we have a man who has a vision. He is a man with a purpose. Any man with a vision, any man with a purpose becomes a hero. We underestimate this. See, why is football so popular? You have a goal, right? And everybody will support that man who goes there. So men who have this ability to inspire others with their vision, others with their leadership abilities, they will become mass magnets. They will inspire people. Like you see the Lakshadweep thing. You saw, imagine, you know, he's shaken up a whole country just because he took a walk in Lakshadweep and he said we should come here.
So, in fact, Sharad, this point about Prime Minister Modi leveraging brand Modi to promote tourism, religious tourism, spiritual tourism, you know, visit India locally. What are the next steps that, you know, really need to be taken apart from the projects? Is there anything else that's really lacking, that's holding us back? We've done these stories about how, you know, it's so difficult to get to Lakshadweep, as Karthikeya mentioned. It's easier to fly into Phuket than it is to go to Lakshadweep. What more needs to be done?
Well, I think in one word, it's infrastructure. I think that's what, when you travel abroad, what is the first thing you like apart from the weather and so the food and so and so forth? I think it's the infrastructure. We all have traveled abroad. You know, the moment you land in Europe, we said, wow, and the very first